Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always. This is the Commando Cast, a video cast about all things Star Wars Destiny. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando.
Hey Star Wars Destiny folks, welcome back to Dice Commando and the Commando Cast, and happy Tuesday. Thanks for joining me early in your week. So the ARH era of Star Wars Destiny has been nothing short of amazing and a miracle for all of us. I mean, great sets, great people, great fun. But one of the things we've been missing since Legacy's block rotated out are sources of AoE, or area of effect damage. And basically what this means is cards that can do damage to everybody on the board, right? We don't have a consistent way to really do that. We lost Leia, we lost Fear and Dead Men, we lost Act of Cruelty, and such. And one of the effects of that we've seen really pop up, especially in the high stakes meta, are these Marin-based, Marin being the character, Marin-based curse ping decks, right? Where, you know, it's kind of like the new evolution of Ewok, right? They started with Beacon Fire, his deck he developed, which, you know, when I played with him for the first time, I was like, man, that's really brilliant. Not my playstyle. I'm really impressed with it. But the deck has since evolved to really a degenerate playstyle that now uses Ewoks plus that, and it really creates this damned if you do, damned if you don't feeling that, in my opinion, is really kind of the ultimate form of degenerate Destiny. Now, as we move back tomorrow into the official legality of ARH-reprint legal, right, starting September 1st, one of the things I'm very, very excited to see is the return of AoE damage and helping us combat and keep those decks in check. Sitting here playing a league game. I'm running Karabenthic, wishing I had some AoE damage because my opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wide with Marin and Chirpa. So, yeah, I'm going to want some shields, man. So one of the things that we've seen as Destiny has evolved, I mean, even starting back in Awakenings, as people have learned how to play the game, how to take advantage, how to get more efficiency, is that decks go wider, right? I mean, I think we can all admit that, you know, at the base level, this game was really designed to be a 2-character game. We saw it very early where we went from 2 characters, you know, Phasma Ball Trooper, right, going 3 wide. And it really just went for there. And one of the things that developed over time in this game was the ability to keep wider decks in check. I mean, there was a First Order Stormtrooper deck early on, but it wasn't great, right? But one of the things that developed that kept those in check was the advent of AoE, or as I mentioned, area of effect damage. And what this really means is it's a card that allows damage to be done in some form or the other to all characters that your opponent has, or all characters that a player has. And what the impact of these cards does is that it magnifies that effect. It negates, in many cases, it negates the bonus of having, it negates the advantage of having wide characters by the fact that for one resource, you could potentially do, you know, for one resource, maybe I'm doing 2 damage to a 2-character team, but I'm doing 4 damage to a 4-character team, right? I mean, I think you guys all get it if you're still here at this point, right? And, you know, some of the, if you look back at the Ewok meta, right? Which is I see, you know, Ewoks, like the Spark of Hope Ewoks, as being very, very similar to many of the curse ping decks that have evolved these days. And one of the things that kept Ewoks in check back then was like, man, Ewoks are really, really, really good, but you sure hope you don't run up against Vader because of Fear and Dead Men, right? So you kept that in mind, always in the back of your head. You're like, yeah, I mean, you know, there's a check and balance. And, you know, to be clear, AoE damage I do think all factions had it right, because we had Fear and Dead Men, we had Active Cruelty, we had Leia, or Leibouche, and we had, what was the other one? Oh, Sudden Impact, one of my favorite cards, actually. So all colors did have it, but you don't necessarily have to have AoE being, it doesn't have to necessarily be universal, because, in a meta type thing, you have, the paper, rock, scissors type thing, and, do you take Ewoks to Worlds? Maybe, but then you hope you don't run into Vader, and then you hope Vader doesn't run into Mill, or or however it may be, right? And so, like I said, not every faction has to have AoE, but I think it's pretty fair to say that we have a lack of AoE available in the ARH meta, or the ARH card pool so far, the ARH design card pool so far, with the rotation of legacies block out. We were left with a lack, and that's really allowed to the rise of these ping decks. Now, let me describe, I'm not exactly to be clear, I'm not a huge fan of these decks. I do not like them very much at all. You can go back to last Sunday's video, and that's actually the worst iteration I've seen. But they're a bunch of, basically the deck is it's a kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't type thing, and it's really quite brilliant, right? When it really comes down to it, it's really quite brilliant. I'm not taking anything away from the deck design. Basically, what you do is so Marin, if there's a curse on them, you can exhaust them, right? Well, Possessed, it's a downgrade that goes on the character. When you put it on them, they can resolve one of your dice, and then you combine that with Uncontrollable Rage, where if you don't activate them because you're afraid of them resolving your dice, you can deal 2 damage to them. And then at the end of it all, what can Marin do? She can activate you, right? So, sure, maybe I just need to, add stuff on my deck that lets me take off downgrades. Fine, I get it. That's a meta check as well. So I'm not sitting here and destroying these decks as like they don't belong in Destiny. That's not what I'm saying. I will say they're not very fun to play against. I strongly dislike playing against them. But the fact of what I'm saying is, aside from at this point putting in a specific card to remove downgrades, there's really no check and balance against them. And that's almost a little too specific to be played in many decks. And that's why I think that, an AoE damage, like, a Fear and Dead Men, right? Fear and Dead Men is still quite playable against a 2-wide deck. Right? Sure, you'd rather resolve it against a 3-wide or a 4-wide or an 8-wide in the case of the stupid Ewoks Curses deck. But you see my point, right? Having AoE present in the meta, again, whether it's universal or not, just having it present and having it be a tool available is a very, very strong thing for us to have. So, as we look forward to, as we go into the Wild West of the ARH-reprint legality, and we start to see how things hash out, I have no idea how they're going to hash out, I really don't. But if we start to look in there, like, man, AoE is really powerful, it could be based on what's out there, but the meta will shift, right? And that's generally what we see. Is Fear and Dead Men worth playing against 2-wide? I did. I used to play it in my mall, my SOH mall. I did play it often. But it's not always worth it, right? But if you're resolving it against a 3-wide, you rarely hesitate, right? So I think there's value in that. I'm not saying Fear and Dead. Fear and Dead Men's kind of the poster child for it, and that's why I'm using that. I'm not saying that's like the ultimate card. I really did like Sudden Impact, by the way. But anyway, my point here is, going forward as we evaluate what should stay, what should not stay. I think we've seen in the last 2 months, really. I think we've seen how important AoE is as a presence in Star Wars Destiny to some extent. Now, again, like I said, whether that be every faction has access to it, or whether it be that at least it exists in some way to just smack down the deck that tries to get cute, like this new Ewoks Curses deck. It's not really new, but in the grand scheme of things, right? So anyway, that's pretty much it for today. It's just I'm really excited looking forward on how we can basically bring some NPE type stuff back in. I think putting it in context of the old SOH meta when Ewoks were really strong, but they were still nervous of running up against something. Right now, that Ewoks Curses deck that's out there, I don't think it really cares what it runs up against. And basically its best counter is to try and run wide against it for more health. And then you've just got a wide meta, and again, there's nothing to keep that in check. So I think what we've seen demonstrated over the last, 6 weeks or so is the importance of AoE, wide damage in Star Wars Destiny, and how it needs to be present in some factor. Like I said, the ones we have coming back are Fear and Dead Men, Active Cruelty. We don't get Sudden Impact back, or Leia Bouche back, but we don't expect that. But anyway, that should do it for today. I think I've proven my point, or at least expressed my point. Again, this cast, I really hope it didn't come across. It was not meant as an attack or whatever on those developed playstyles. I actually give a huge shout out to Beacon. I think it was a really, really creative deck. I think it just kind of went too far, and again, it's become too efficient to really beat as a 2-wide. I'm not saying it can't be done. And to be completely fair, I think a lot of those decks, especially the original version, I think it kind of came out as a way to counter Mando to a certain extent, which I think was really well played. That's how this evolves. The problem is we don't really have anything to evolve into it, right? The only way that you can really counter it as it exists today without there being consistent AoE damage is that you really have to just go wide on it too. And then you end up so you see what I'm saying, right? We're missing a piece of the puzzle. And starting tomorrow, we're going to get some of those pieces back. So I hope that we keep those in context as things develop. And even if they do get a little too strong, maybe we dial back, but we don't eliminate them entirely. So anyway, that's the piece for today. Thanks, guys, for joining me. I'd love to hear your feedback, your experiences as well. Again, I want to be very clear. This is not meant as a hate on those specific decks. It's meant as the fact that it's like, hey, we saw what happens when we don't have some of the tools that we need. And let's figure out how to move forward. So anyway, thanks for joining me, folks, and go Commando.